I wasn't really very close to my parents. When I was growing up, they never really had much time for me. I used to wonder what it would be like to have a mom that would bake cakes with me or take me to the movies. All I ever heard was, "Go to your room, Ella. Dad and I are very busy." Mom and Dad were always huddled together whispering about something. If I walked into the room, they would stop talking and look weirdly at each other. The only time I really felt happy was when I was at school with my friends. I love being at school. I had so much fun with my friends. We would sit together in the playground talking about boys and discussing what our plans were for the weekend. Sometimes I wish I could stay at school forever. When the bell went at the end of the day, I knew that my fun had finished for the day. My parents were really mean to me. They always left me out of things. Like the time when I came home from school and heard them talking in the basement. I went down the stairs to the basement and called out to them. "I'm home. What are you two doing?"
"Don't come down here, Ella,"
said Dad.
"Just go to your room."
I did as Dad told me. I knew there was no point in arguing with him. It was just the same all the time. Go to your room. Don't disturb your mom and I. We're busy. I would always try to go to sleep as early as possible. That way, it would soon be morning and I could get back to school. I remember the first time I saw Charlie. He was walking to school with my friends, and he was standing at the entrance, looking a bit lost. "Who was that?" I said to my friend Carla. "No idea," she replied. It didn't take long for us to find out. We went into the classroom and sat down. A few minutes later, the teacher walked in with the boy we had seen. "This is Charlie. This is his first day at our school, so I hope you will all make him feel welcome," she said. I looked at Charlie, and he smiled at me. My stomach turned over. My face went bright red. He must think I'm a complete idiot, I thought. I looked away and tried not to catch his eye for the rest of class. At break time, I ran to find my friends. "Have you seen Charlie?" I asked them. "He is gorgeous." "Oh, we think you have a crush," they said, laughing. That afternoon, we had a geography field trip. We were going to visit a local museum. We went out to the school bus, and as we got on, our teacher took our names and told us that we would go looking around the museum in Paris. I couldn't believe my luck when he said,
"Ella, you go with Charlie."
"Okay, sir," I said. I didn't dare look at any of my friends because I knew they would be pulling faces at me. Charlie was so much fun. He kept telling jokes and entertaining me. I had never had so much fun on a field trip before. When I got home from school, I ran straight to my room and grabbed my diary. I started writing all about Charlie in my diary, all about his long brown hair and freckled face, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "I can't wait to see him tomorrow," I wrote. I put my diary away in my drawer and went downstairs to the kitchen. Mom was making dinner and Dad was looking at some files. As I went into the room, Dad pushed the files out of sight.
"Eat your dinner and then go straight back to your room,"
Dad snapped. He looked really stressed again.
"I'm going for a quick shower,"
he said to Mom.
"I won't be long. Then we need to go through some papers together."
I ate my dinner in silence. Mom sat staring out the window deep in thought. When I had finished my dinner, I went upstairs to my room. As I walked towards my door, I could see my dad was sitting at my table. What is he doing? I thought. I walked into the room and Dad looked up at me.
"Why are you wasting your time writing a silly diary?"
He asked me as if a diary is of no use to anyone. I couldn't believe it. He was reading my diary. "Give it to me," I shouted. "That's my private diary. How could you read it?" Dad gave me the diary and left my room. I was so angry with him. It wasn't fair. They treated me so badly. Why can't I have normal parents like everyone else? Why can't I have normal parents like everyone else? I thought. The next morning when I woke up, Dad had already left for work. I suppose it was good. Really, at least I didn't have to speak to him. I set off for school. I couldn't wait to get there to see Charlie. But Charlie wasn't at school that day. He must be sick, I thought. But days went by and still Charlie didn't come back to school. I felt really disappointed. I hope he hasn't changed schools, I thought. I missed him so much. The only good thing at that time was that Mom and Dad had suddenly cheered up. Dad was actually singing to himself when I came in from school. He smiled at me as I walked into my room.
Did you have a good day, Ella?
He asked. Yeah, it was okay, I guess, I said in surprise. Dad never asked me about my day. I wondered why he was in such a good mood. Where's Mom? I asked.
Oh, she's just gone down to the basement for something,
he replied. Okay, I'll go find her, I said. Suddenly, Dad's mood changed.
Don't go to the basement, Ella. We told you before, you stay away from there,
he shouted. What is it about the basement? I thought to myself. Why don't they want me to go near it? Well, a few days after that, I found out that it was Saturday morning and Mom and Dad were going out shopping. We won't be long, Mom called as she got into the car with Dad. I went and sat on the sofa. I looked out of the window and wished that the rain would stop. I felt so bored sitting there all alone with nothing to do. That's when I heard the noise. It sounded like a scratching sound, and it was coming from the basement. I knew that I wasn't supposed to go down there, but curiosity got the better of me. I ran down the stairs and listened at the basement door. I heard the noise again. There was definitely someone or something in there. I opened the door and went into the basement. There in the corner of the room, I saw a bed and someone was laid in it. Who are you? I shouted. What are you doing in my basement? I couldn't see very clearly, so I walked a few steps closer. That's when I got the biggest shock of my life. Charlie was sitting on a bed in my basement. Charlie? I cried. What are you doing here? Charlie looked up at me. I'm here because of your psycho parents, he said. What? I had to pinch myself because I thought I was dreaming. My parents are rich and your parents have kidnapped me and brought me here, I guess for ransom, said Charlie. I escaped from them once, but they found me again. So that's why you haven't been at school, I said. I told Charlie not to worry. I said that I was going to help him escape. Well, it was the least I could do. We packed up Charlie's things and I grabbed some of the stuff and threw it in a bag. We had to get as far away from here as possible. We ran to the bus station and I bought 2 tickets. We stood waiting for the bus. I was so scared because my parents drove around the corner, but luckily the bus pulled in and we jumped on it. I had no idea where we were heading or what we would do when we got there, but I was just relieved that I had managed to get Charlie away from them. I'm so sorry about my parents, I said to him. I don't know why they would do something like that. It's okay, it's not your fault, he said. Suddenly the bus screeched to a halt when the door opened. I looked up and saw my mom and dad getting on the bus. They walked down to where we were sitting. Come on, you two, Dad said. We're taking you home with us. No, I said. I know what you've done to Charlie. I know that you were bad guys. Oh, you've got it all wrong, replied Dad. We're not the bad guys. We're saving Charlie. Dad explained that him and Mom work for a special government department. He told us that Charlie's parents had asked the government for help because some of the bad guys were plotting to kidnap Charlie and hold him for ransom. They just needed us to keep you hidden until the bad guys gave up looking for you, Dad said. But you didn't make it easy for us when you kept on escaping. Mom told us that Charlie was going to come and live with our family. He wouldn't have to sleep in the basement anymore. Not now that I knew exactly what was going on. We got into Dad's car and drove home. I felt awful that I had thought my parents were bad guys, but it did seem pretty obvious at the time. When we arrived home, Mom showed Charlie to his bedroom. He was having the room next to mine. I couldn't help but feel quite excited that Charlie was going to be living with us. I would get to see him at school and then spend every evening with him too. When Charlie had put away all his things, We went downstairs to see what was for dinner. I haven't had time to cook anything, so Dad and I will go out and get some pizza. Why don't you sit down and put the TV on, Charlie? And I went into the lounge and put on a movie. I could hardly concentrate on the film with Charlie sitting so close to me. I kept secretly looking at him. I felt like I was dreaming. I don't think I'd ever felt so happy for a long time. We were probably about 10 minutes into the movie when we heard an almighty crash and the glass in our room window smashed to pieces. I looked towards the window and saw 2 men wearing black masks coming through the window. Oh no, these must be the kidnappers my parents had told us about, I thought. Before I had the chance to do anything, one of them had grabbed hold of Charlie and they were pulling him towards the door. Charlie looked at me. His face was terrified. I looked around me frantically, wondering what I should do. Suddenly, I saw my diary on the table next to the sofa. I grabbed it and threw it as hard as I could at the man who had a hold of Charlie. The diary hit him so hard it knocked him to the ground and then ricocheted off him and hit the other man on the head. Both of the men were lying on the ground unconscious. That's when I heard Dad's voice. I hadn't heard him come in. He looked at the 2 men lying on the floor.
Well, I guess keeping a diary does come in handy after all,
he said, laughing. Dad pulled out some handcuffs and put them on the 2 men. Mom had called the police as soon as they got home, so it wasn't long before they were putting the 2 guys in the back of the police car. We went into the kitchen and sat down to eat our pizza. Are you 2 okay now? Asked Mom. Yes, we're fine, I said. But I've got one question. Mom, I said, how did you know that Charlie was going to my school? Mom looked at Dad. Then Dad told me it was when he read my diary. He told us that I had described Charlie in such great detail that even though I hadn't written his name, Dad had just been sure I was talking about the prince that had escaped from him. I felt so embarrassed. What would Charlie think of me? I thought. I looked at him expecting him to laugh at me, but instead he said, You saved my life. How can I ever repay you? I have no idea where I found the courage to say what I did, but I just blurted out, Well, you could take me on a date if you like.
I have a feeling I'm going to be taking you on a lot of dates,
said Charlie, smiling. After the police had arrested the bad guys, it was safe for Charlie to go back and live with his own family. But I didn't mind. I had lots of dates to look forward to with him. Get on the scales quickly, I ordered my boyfriend. Dan was visibly nervous, but got on them anyway, and they suddenly broke under him. Well, that's it. It can't go on like this any longer. I kicked that fat slob out of my house, and then I threw away all his gifts. The following days, I could see flowers, toys, and cute postcards from my ex-boyfriend near my house. At first, I just threw them away, and then I started disfiguring them and stuffed everything in Dan's locker. Yes, he almost cried when the pile fell on him. Apparently, Dan did not want to let go of such beauty. Therefore, right in the schoolyard, he painted a huge white heart on the asphalt with a declaration of love. Everyone was laughing at us. I was burning with shame, and he was on his knees asking me to return to him. No way. I rejected him right in front of everyone and called him a nasty, fat idiot. It got on someone's camera, and by the evening, a video of Dan's humiliation had been posted on Instagram. By the way, it had thousands of views, and believe me, many people were on my side in this scenario. Dan approached me the next day, pushed me, and told me that I would regret breaking up with him. No way would a beautiful woman like me date an obese slob. In return, I merely spit my juice all over his face and urged him to get away. Who'd have guessed that I'd come to regret my decision? In fact, I myself was on my knees begging Dan to come back, and he just laughed at me and my feelings. My name is Sabrina, and I really want to tell you this story. I could never imagine what would have to happen to me to start dating a nasty fat guy again. Maybe a meteorite hitting the earth, the end of the world, or a tsunami? Dan was too self-assured, and I just chuckled at his confidence. He was so ridiculous when we were running around the school at the PE lesson. He was the first to be out of breath and then would rest for several minutes. And after the exercises, his entire shirt was sweaty and disgusting. The girls felt sorry for me because I once loved this piggy. It was even more fun when Dan got into a fight. Since I was already single, I decided to flirt with the best swimmer in our school and at the same time to invite him on a date. And when Peter kissed me on the cheek, Dan got so angry that he immediately got into a fight. Despite his weight, his size did not help him win the fight. Peter easily dragged him down and then smiled. I couldn't help but laugh as well. Dan was pitiful. He called me names and then stormed off, angry and depressed. You might wonder how I can fall in love with a loser like him. He wasn't always this heavy, and he used to be slender and almost the most attractive person in school. With all the females chasing after him, including myself. Can you imagine how happy I was when he chose me? Girls in my class gasped with envy, and boys hated Dan because he was a real macho compared to them, and I started showing off even more. But then something went wrong. Dan started to eat a lot of fat food, wash it down with soda, and got fat, which really bothered me. He did not even notice how rapidly he was gaining weight. I asked him to stop, sometimes shoving salad instead of a burger for lunch. But Dan refused to eat that and called it food for some goats or sheep. I even began to threaten to break up with him, and then Dan started having second thoughts. He tried to eat healthy, even started going to the gym, but the weight did not go anywhere. But on the contrary, it was increasing. As a result, Dan made a tidy profit of 140 pounds. These stats continue to astound me. So how did you manage to let yourself go like that? As a result, Dan morphed from a dashing young man into a pitiful, overweight slob. Because I was dating him, a lot of people made fun of me. I was appalled by kissing such a balloon, hugging him and having to stop in the middle of a walk so he could just collect his breath. I was also terrified of going shopping with him. When Dan couldn't fit into jeans, he managed to rip them while stubbornly trying them on. And then Store's t-shirts were soaked with terrible stench of sweat after him. I felt extremely embarrassed. He was cute, but he got ugly, and it was just cringe to date a guy like that. I could no longer catch sidelong glances and smirks as well as force myself to kiss him. Dan's beautiful courtship could not outdo his enormous weight, so I'd rather be with Peter. Sometimes we'd run into Dan at the gym. I assumed he'd fall over and wash away his exhaustion with a burger because he was so awkward jumping rope for running. Dan, on the other hand, would get up and exercise. The next day, if he sat down for a rest, he overdid it, and an ambulance was dispatched to take him to the hospital. When Dan returned to school, he was blind to bullying and insults, which was both tragic and hilarious. He had entirely disconnected from the rest of the world and was doing his own thing. He was missing for 6 months shortly after that. I didn't even know what I was feeling at that moment. It must have been pity or contempt. Rumors immediately spread throughout the school that he had simply given up or that he was in the hospital. Peter actually said that Dan was probably in a mental hospital, but when he returned to school, I simply forgot how to breathe, being overwhelmed with emotions. He had gotten even better than before. Athletic, fit with a new hairstyle, and in new clothes. He even got a new car. Dan instantly became the most popular guy in school, and the girls started running after him again. But that was not all. It turned out that he had taken part in one popular project where fat people were losing weight. That's how he made a lot of money. I had never watched this show, but when I found out that Dan had been on it, I immediately downloaded that episode. I had found out a lot. It turned out that he had a hormonal imbalance and psychological problems, which was why he gained weight in this program. Not only trainers were working with him, but also psychologists. And when Dan said that he would take revenge on one stupid chick, I dropped my popcorn in shock. He meant me, of course. I felt offended by these words. So the next day, I yelled at Dan. He just laughed at me and poured his juice all over me. Dan said that I was a loser and left. And I was like a fool standing in the middle of a school corridor and was being laughed at. I no longer wanted to get back with this jerk until he arrived at school in his new Jaguar and dressed in a cool outfit. He called my girlfriends for a ride, but he didn't even look at me. And a few days later, one of them was talking about the pricey earrings he had given her the day before. I had to keep an eye on how he courted my pal. In the schoolyard, he was playing his guitar and sang songs. He painted her portrait because he was a talented artist. Then he sprinkled rose petals throughout the classroom and proposed to her in front of everyone. My friend was beaming with joy, while I was fuming with rage. It was impossible to expect Peter to make such romantic gestures. He was obnoxious and narcissistic in general. His appearance no longer pleased me, since aside from that, there was nothing cool about him. And Dan, in comparison to him, was one in everything. It was at this point that I regretted leaving him, and of course I desired to reclaim him. I tried to flirt with him, give him cute gifts, or just shower him with compliments, but Dan was just laughing at me, and then he said that our relationship could start over if I stood on my knees in front of him and begged him to come back. No way! I thought. I would not humiliate myself in front of him. However, when Dan posted a video on Instagram from the fanciest restaurant, I thought that I could kneel in front of him after all. He's not only handsome now, but he's also rich. And right in front of the whole class, I was begging him to date me and crying from humiliation. But Dan just laughed and told me to get lost after calling me stupid trash. And then he posted a video, which he had edited himself in the first part. He was kneeling in front of me, and in the second, I was kneeling in front of him. And then I saw all my actions from the outside. I had been nasty to Dan, even without realizing why he had gained weight. I just thought he was eating too much, and I felt horribly embarrassed and offended. We humiliated one another and inflicted a great deal of stress on each other. I started eating a lot and didn't even realize how much weight I was gaining. I was able to divert my attention away from the negative aspects of my life by eating fatty foods. So in 1 month, I gained so many pounds that I couldn't fit into any of my jeans. And a month later, I couldn't even recognize myself in the mirror. I'd grown big, and people began ridiculing me in the same way they mocked Dan. And I finally realized how difficult it had been for him due to stress. Due to his poor self-esteem, he had been eating more and more. He had given up and simply did not see any point in losing weight. Due to obesity, I started having problems with my breathing, heart, and even joints. My body was not ready for such a rapid weight gain. I could hardly move around, often stopping to catch my breath. Physical education had become the least favorite subject because I could no longer do the exercises properly, and now I had to run behind everyone, stop often, and also reek of sweat. The guys were avoiding me, and my friends suddenly turned their backs on me because it was embarrassing for them to mix with a fatso. Never in my life had I felt so lonely and lame. But then something unexpected happened. Dan sat down at my desk one day and offered to help. He noticed how the guys mocked me and refused to leave me alone, and his patience finally ran out when they threw moist and filthy rags at me. He stated that he comprehended my situation well. I couldn't believe how happy I was. I even burst into tears. Not from joy, but from embarrassment. I couldn't do anything to help Dan while he was overweight, and I was only hurting him, yet he didn't desert me. We began hanging out in the evenings again, and I began to go to the stadium, where he assisted me in performing various physical exercises. Then he advised me to make an appointment with a psychologist as well as a nutritionist so they could make a personal menu for me. I followed his advice, and over some time, I started to recover, the weight gradually decreasing, and I started feeling much more confident. But this was not only thanks to proper nutrition and a psychologist, but also thanks to the support of Dan, who had never laughed at my appearance. And when I was able to lose a lot of weight, he was happier than me. After this story, we have forgiven each other for all the insults and remain good friends. And I have realized that you should not humiliate a person for their drawbacks. Appearance can be deceiving, as terrible demons might be hiding underneath a beautiful cover. I used to be like that, but thanks to Dan, I've changed. Would you dump your boyfriend or girlfriend if they gained a lot of weight? Post your responses in the comments. I would be interested to read them. Click the like button and share this video with your friends. It was a bit raucous and the mood was a bit crowded. I tried to figure out what was going on and whose party I had arrived at, but it was difficult due to the volume, strange faces, sounds, and laughter that can be heard. Everything felt like something out of a horror movie, since what was going on made me feel scared and anxious. I attempted to figure out how to get out of there and which way to go, but it was tough because these insane individuals who appeared to have escaped from the procession of freaks were everywhere, and I couldn't just go around them. I have never seen so many insane people together in one location before. Because everything seemed unreal, I began to believe that I was either asleep or had lost my mind. Furthermore, before arriving to this location, it was as if I had been electrocuted. Because there were so many unusual things happening in such a short period of time as a result of this idea, I tried to wake myself up, but it was futile. And then I was blinded by the searchlight directed directly into my face, and everyone around me began to applaud. This drove me insane, and I assumed I had died and gone to hell, not heaven. Although, what if this is some kind of halfway point? In this thinking, I was immobilized by terror until one of the freaks approached me and offered me a glass. Oh, the goblet. Perhaps this is some kind of mistake, and it is not intended for me. So I decided to read what was written on it. Miss Ugliness. What the hell is going on here? Hey guys, my name is Nina. And recently, a very strange and stupid story happened to me because I got the title of Miss Ugliness while being the top beauty of my school. How is this possible? You may ask soon. You will find out the answer to this question. Let me tell you everything from the beginning since childhood. I've always been a very beautiful girl. I was often invited to participate in photo sessions for different ads. For example, baby clothes and then some cosmetics of the world brands. I won all the beauty contests, and I had no equal. In fact, while I was a kid, my natural physical characteristics and my innate charm were enough. But later, I owed my success to my parents. They put a lot of effort and money into my appearance, education, and future. So things at school would have been different if they hadn't been there. I always won beauty pageants, broke the hearts of the coolest boys, and elicited envy even among the most popular girls. I was always and everywhere the best. So I was taken aback by this, adoring myself and my reflection in the mirror, recognizing that my beauty could be used as a weapon, and following a string of absolute successes. I decided to enter a local beauty pageant, confident that I would win. My classmate Jay, by the way, chose to join me, and I was startled by his decision. Jay, as well as beauty? Okay, I'll stop talking now. Jay and I had been quite close for over a month before the competition, and had even become friends. We encouraged one another and worked together to prepare for the approaching event, which included exercises, catwalks, massages, and cosmetic procedures. It's not simple to be beautiful in sports. But the closer we came to the scheduled date, the more I realized Jay admired me even more than before, and that I shouldn't have trusted her. As a result, I was really apprehensive of her and avoided entirely opening up to her. I once noticed Jay's sly and jealous stare on myself while walking on the treadmill during a workout. I got a shiver down my spine and asked her why she was staring at me so strangely. Jay assured me that everything was fine. It was just that I looked like a cow, and it was hard to believe that I was the participant of a beauty contest. I was shocked by what I heard. I even got dumbfounded by such words. So I could only answer that she should have looked at herself and that she seemed very stupid in that situation. However, there was a real storm inside me. I wanted to tell Jay everything I thought about her, but I restrained myself. When the day of the competition came, for some reason I began to worry. Although I had no doubts that I would win, I felt really uneasy, and I guess I even began to be afraid of the upcoming event. I wonder what the reason for that was. After all, I had always been self-confident before leaving the house. Jay called me and asked me to pick her up to go to the competition together. Well, of course, I did not mind. I thought that Jay's presence would somehow calm me down. Together, we would feel more confident than on our own. On the way, Jay told me that she needed to go to her grandmother's place and take something from her. This was strange, because earlier she said that she had neither grandmothers or grandfathers, and that they had died long ago. However, I didn't ask her any questions and just followed her on her way. I started to get nervous because I was afraid to be late for the competition, as we had to go in a completely different direction, and this took away our precious time. We came to one of the old buildings with a very bad reputation because there were almost no tenants. Then we went up to the second floor, and Jay asked me to ring her grandmother's doorbell as she was texting someone at the moment. Of course, I responded to her request because it was not difficult for me. However, as I pressed the doorbell button, I felt sharp pain all over my body, and I started shaking. It was an electric shock, and I could not tear myself away from the button for a minute or two. Everything around me was as if it was on fast forward mode, and I could not get what was happening. Well, apart from not understanding anything, I even forgot who I was and where I was. When this nightmare finally stopped, I felt as if I had been to hell and had just returned from it. Well, in fact, everything was exactly like that. I did not remember where I was and what preceded it. I didn't even remember that I came together with Jay and that her grandmother was supposed to live there. Being totally confused and depressed, I got outside and went nowhere. I began to reconstruct the chain of events, and one thing became clear to me in particular. I realized that Jay just left me there and ran away. So I was not mistaken about her decency. I was walking along the streets and felt as bad as ever before. I was hurt, scared, and really upset. My body was trembling and looking like a leaf fluttering in the wind, and the beat of my heart seemed to echo from the top of my head to my toes. I've never felt so messed up before. After walking some distance, I ended up at the entrance to a building that looked like a hospital, and I couldn't come up with a better idea than going there and asking for help. But I didn't understand if that was a hospital. I was a little out of my mind. Can you remember? And as soon as I entered that building, I saw a crowd of some crazy people. They immediately surrounded me, and it looked like they were the actors from a horror movie. But they were so realistic that at some point I even doubted what I was saying. And in the end, they gave me the Miss Ugliness cup, which really threw me off balance. Then I was shocked, not so much by what was happening, but by the title that I had just been awarded. Actually, I decided to participate in a beauty contest to get the title of the top beauty of our city. But not all that. After all, what does this imply? And how dare these deranged individuals act in such a manner? And because my rage was uncontrollable, I began yelling and waving the cursed cup, demanding that the crazies take it away from me immediately. They were, however, smiling and circling around me as though making fun of me. Then I became enraged and hurled the trophy as far as I could with all my might. The room fell silent. People around me paused and stared at me, like scanning. And then someone questioned if I had lost my mind and why I'd come to the carnival in such a foul mood, which I shared with everyone. And then some of them grew upset and offered to take away my title. Then one of the guys around took off his mask and asked me why the hell I ruined everyone's holiday with my terrible behavior. And under the mask, he looked like quite a decent guy. I even found him a bit cute. I was a bit puzzled by this and tried to understand what the matter actually was, and everything started to fall into place when I began to peer into the faces of others that are freaks, as it seemed to me, and looked at their mask or makeup, under which ordinary teenagers like me were hiding. That is, they really had a carnival, and apparently I ended up there by accident. But what does this humiliating cup have to do with this? And then one of the girls gave me a mirror and said that I was actually one of the ugliest guests of the carnival, and that my reaction upset everyone who was present there. I looked at the mirror and was horrified. My face was covered with black stripes, looking like soot. And as for my hair, it stood on end and stuck out in all directions, which made me look like a broom. Oh my God! And then I realized that it was because of the electric shock and that I turned into a really ugly girl. Ironically, I ended up at this carnival where everyone had different images and hoped to get that cup, but none of those present could even compare to me. As a result, I missed the carnival's nastiness. Also, those guys turned out to be quite nice, and they were all theater club members. They assisted me in getting home as soon as I told them what occurred to me, and they even invited me to their concert. Later, it was revealed that Jay had set up the incident on purpose. She had planned ahead of time to go to that building, and as she didn't have any grandmothers living there, she removed the wires inside the doorbell. That's why as soon as I pressed it, I received an electric shock. She did it because she was envious, yet she still didn't win the beauty pageant. She's now having issues with the cops. Do you believe Jay's actions are justified? Leave your thoughts in the comments, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel.